Hey, what's up? It's Chris Seiter, and today we're gonna... Hold on. Today we're gonna be talking about what to do when your ex doesn't respond to you and what text message you can send to get them to respond to you. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you look in the description link below to take our Ex Recovery Chances quiz. It's a simple 2-minute quiz I put together designed to tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back, and it's completely free. So again, check the description and we'll hook you up. A lot of people sit there and ask me why their ex isn't responding to them. And my answer is usually pretty simple. You're boring. Well, actually not you, but your text messages are boring. Throughout your relationship, you got into certain patterns with your ex. You got comfortable, if you will. But when you go through a breakup, those certain patterns really don't help you out anymore, especially when you're trying to be interesting in text messages. So, trying to respond to them or trying to get a conversation started with them by simply responding, hey, or what's up, or how are you doing, isn't really going to cut it anymore. But fear not, because I'm going to teach you a special method I teach to my one-on-one coaching clients that helps get them responses from their ex. And it's going to help you get responses from your ex. So there's 3 parts to this method: the premise, the hook, and the payoff. Let's begin by talking about the premise. Generally speaking, the premise is going to be something that you're going to craft your text message around. Usually you want to keep it around something your ex is actually interested in. In other words, if climate change fascinates you but your ex couldn't care less, do not craft a text message around climate change. Remember, this is only supposed to be something your ex is going to be interested in. Your entire text message conversation with your ex is going to surround this premise, so make sure it's good. The second part to a great text message that your ex will actually respond to is going to be the hook. Now, the hook is really simple to describe. It's something that will make your ex respond to you. The hook is all about one simple thing: getting your ex to respond to your text message. Generally speaking, a great hook is going to create a pattern interrupt, or it's going to create enough curiosity that will make your ex want to respond. And then finally, we have the payoff. The payoff is perhaps the easiest to explain and the most difficult to implement. Here's how it goes. Your job with the payoff is simply to make your ex feel like they didn't waste your time responding to you. There needs to be some type of positive emotion that they get out of the text interaction that interests them and makes them want to continue texting you. Now, generally speaking, your premise and your payoff are going to be interconnected. So if you have a very, very poor premise, then your payoff is going to be very poor. And if you have a really good premise, your payoff is going to be pretty great. Now, I can hear half of you going, slow down, Chris, slow down, you're going too fast, I can't keep up. Don't worry, I'm gonna actually give you an exact example of a text message that I've recommended for clients to use that have gotten great results. So I'm gonna switch over to my computer now to actually demonstrate how you should be putting these parts throughout a text message.
So everyone's always dying to know what these texts look like and how you should really enact them. So I'm going to take you step by step, part 1, part 2, and part 3, and explain exactly what you should be doing, how these texts should be looking, and giving you a few examples. So part 1 is the premise. Now, the premise is pretty simple. It needs to be something that your ex is going to be massively interested in, right? So generally speaking, the more personal this is, the better. And one thing I don't have noted here is the more passionate they are about it, that works the best, right? So, for example, it can be something like books, comic books, video editing, movies, whatever your ex is passionate about that they care about, that's what you want to use as your premise. So basically, your entire text message is going to be structured around this premise. That's going to help you with part 3, the payoff. But the first thing you should do always before you create your text is come up with the premise, right? So make sure, rack your brain, figure out what your ex is interested in. This is going to require you to listen or think back to your relationship potentially in a way you've not thought back on it before. So that's part 1. Part 2 is the hook. Now, the one prerequisite of the hook is it needs to make your ex want to respond, right? So you're going to use curiosity or pattern interrupts to do this, right? So pattern interrupts are things that will interrupt the pattern of what's normal, right? So the idea here is if your ex is walking along, you will interrupt them with some type of beginning text that will make them look at their phone and get drawn in. So you're competing against everything else in the world. Your job is to come up or craft a text that's curious enough or creates enough curiosity to make your ex want to respond, right? So perfect examples of this is you basically saying, you aren't going to believe who I just saw. The craziest thing just happened. I have a confession to make. Or my personal favorite, can you keep a secret? All of these are designed to create curiosity. Some are better than others. Some are maybe going to be the best. I've had a lot of great success with I have a confession to make, but the problem is if you don't have a great premise, it's not really going to work so well for you. I've also had great success with can you keep a secret, right? So that is hooks, right? So that is always going to be how you want to start your text message. Remember, the more curiosity you can create, the better. But don't create enough curiosity to where the hook is going to outshine the payoff, right? So part 3 of creating a text that your ex will respond to is coming up with a payoff, right? So the design here is after they respond to your text that creates sort of a hook, what you want to do is create enough of a payoff to make them feel it was worth their time or make them feel excited or happy. The idea here is when you're texting your ex, you want them to always be excited or happy when they talk to you, right? So they associate those good feelings with you. And this is where you're going to play onto your premise, right? So I'll use myself as example. This is always the example I use because it's the easiest to explain it. One thing I'm really passionate about is reading, specifically science fiction, fantasy novels. I just get into that stuff, right? So anything about that I'm passionate about. So let's pretend this is the exact text that I get sent, right? This is probably what I would sort of respond to, right? So the very first curiosity-based hook text is going to be, can you keep a secret? That's enough to get me potentially to respond. Yeah, what is it? Now here is the payoff. Well, no one is supposed to know this yet, but the Barnes & Noble where I work is having Pierce Brown come for a signing. They haven't announced it yet, but I figured you'd be dying to know. So to give you some context, Pierce Brown is an author of one of my favorite science fiction novels called Red Rising. And I would be really interested to know if he was coming in my area to a Barnes & Noble signing because I would totally go to it. And I think this is a great example of a payoff. But notice how you can use really anything as long as your ex is passionate about it.